Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Mortgage Heroes Weekly Podcast. I'm Andy.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Will.
So today, guys, we have some really, really good news, and I'm super happy to talk about this. The first thing, of course, is about the Fed, which is not necessarily great news, but let's check it out. Fed is disconnected from reality, must cut rates 5 times next year, portfolio manager says. Then we have the mortgage market just had its strongest week in months. That's great. And promising signs abound for 2024 housing market. Excited about that. And the Home Equity Insights report came out from CoreLogic for quarter 3, 2023. Lot of really good things to talk about here today, guys. So let's go right to the top. First article today, coming in today, guys. This is from CNBC. Now, the claim here is that the Fed is disconnected from reality and they must cut rates 5 times next year, a portfolio manager says. Couple key points. The Fed is behind the curve when it comes to cutting rates, says Paul Gamble's managing partner at MBMG Group. And traders are now pricing a 25% basis point cut as early as March 24. That's new information. And what do you guys make? First of all, what is your initial knee-jerk reaction to this kind of opinion?
So previous shows, if you guys have been following, we've been talking about that if they cut too soon, it might be a huge problem for the economy. But there we go again, back to who knows what's going to happen. It could happen. It doesn't happen. No one knows. Now they're going to say that they're cutting, and it's been a headline throughout the week that I've been seeing Fed to cut 5 times at least, starting into, the first quarter of 2024. And then I start to think, well, if you start already pre-signaling that, what is the economy going to do real quick? And we saw it. Rates have been on the downtrend.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Demand
Big
comes
time.
back
Big
up.
time.
People are going to spend money. And I think the warning here is that, this guy's basically claiming that Fed policy is so disconnected from the economic factors and from reality that you can't make any assumptions about when the Fed's going to wake up and start smelling the amount of damage that they're actually causing the economy. Now, again, a lot of that is being argued on television and online by a lot of people like us and in other industries related to and connected to the finance industries. But I honestly, my personal opinion is I think March is a little bit. I think that's early. I think this is a little bit of the tail trying to wag the dog, and we talked about this before. People that are kind of like barking, like, "Oh yeah, they're gonna have to cut rates next year. Cut rates." I think they're trying to nudge them in that direction so that they will eventually do it. 5 seems a little bit excessive to me, unless again they know something that they're actually breaking and they're not talking about it yet. That's the only justification or rationale I can see for there to be 5 cuts.
And something that threw me off today, and it's it sucks that we say it like this. I asked Will when we were talking about it, like, "Hey, non-farm payroll came in higher than expected," and we're like, that should be a good thing, but it isn't.
Right.
And then to top it off, wages rose by 12 cents. So, man,
12 cents. Wait a minute. That's a lot of affordability there.
National hourly increased by 12 cents, providing huge relief to the workforce.
No,
not at all.
Not enough.
And then to top it off, the headline, unemployment rate dropped from 3.9 to 3.7%.
Right.
All negative things that, should be positive. But,
they need unemployment to go higher, and it's going lower. So, again, that's tough. So, I don't know, Memo. We've seen the Fed a lot longer. They've had to make drastic cuts before when they had other things happen. We saw, consecutive rate increases since March of 22. I mean, it's so hard to believe that was almost 2 years ago now. And
22.
Yes,
sorry, it's 21.
March of 22, they started raising rates. Yeah, so I'm saying that we're about to get to the 2-year mark where they've been increasing rates, but it's like they've had a couple pauses. I don't know. What's your outlook when someone says something like this? Are you inclined to believe them or not believe them? What do you put behind that?
You know what? Nowadays, it's hard to believe all that great news. I mean, 5 times, I just don't see that happening. But obviously, I think they have to try to stimulate the economy, kind of enter into 24, with the optimistic approach.
Yeah.
But, here's the thing. The economy is going to really tell us where we're going to be at with our GDP, consumer confidence spending. Mm-hmm. We have these certain things that will continue to move forward as we go into 2024. And that's really going to be the determining factor if this will happen or not.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of pressure on them, and I think a lot of it is going to be silent, unspoken, or not. It's probably spoken, but just not public. It's not publicly being spoken to them. It's probably behind closed doors, private memos, notes, emails, text messages, phone calls, that kind of thing, where they're going to get pressure. I can't imagine going into an election cycle where they do not get pressure for things to be better along the road towards an eventual election.
That's another thing, and that's what they said here, right? The Federal Reserve needs to cut interest rates at least 5 times next year to avoid tipping the U.S. economy into a recession. Didn't they say that in the beginning of the year that we were getting in that and how we didn't? And I mean, you had all these people say next month we'll be in a recession. Well,
Yeah.
obviously it's still not there, only because, again, certain economic indicators, they'll always go in there, and that'll have more influence than anything else.
And you're right. It is definitely a bearish perspective and more of a bearish opinion. But it is hard to argue at some point when you see certain things where they're stuck. Certain pricing of things is stuck, and it's not going to retreat back to where it was, let's say, pre-COVID levels. There's going to be a lot of instances where stuff like that is probably just going to continue, and we don't know what things are going to be until we actually see it. But the fact that not everything is retreating in price yet is an indication that I think they are at the tipping point where they are potentially going to go too far if they discontinue. I mean, they have to pause.
Yeah.
They have to continue pausing. They'll eventually have to ease up, but then easing up means something too. To Brian's point, you're going to see price resurgence come back. People are going to be able to buy and lend again. You're going to have some businesses borrowing more money, people borrowing more money. Now we're borrowing more. We're talking about consumer credit being so high, balances being high. I mean,
I feel like there's just a lot of moving pieces, right? And I was doing some research, and I came up with 8 catalysts that they have to take into consideration, all of which not everything could be controlled. And right off the bat is Federal Reserve's actions, inflation and deflation trends, job market dynamics, consumer price index, producer price index, the Federal Reserve rate decision, market sentiment or inflation and interest rates, and economic growth indicators. That's a lot of stuff that you have to take in consideration, and not everything works in conjunction. So everything literally does what it needs to do, and then the Fed come up and say, well, based on what happened, this is the decision we have to make. So all this still needs to happen before we have a clear indicator of what direction we're going to move. And not until we have clear data, then we can really make those assumptions or those true decisions of saying this is what's going to happen. But I feel them coming out and saying this might send a false alarm to the markets, and it could, bring negative impacts if we don't do it at the right time. And it's really hard to time.
Well, again, to a regular consumer, they're going to read this and they're going to reduce the rate 5 times.
Great.
Right? But what they don't understand is they have to read all of this.
Yeah.
If they go and read what Jerome Powell said, and he said this multiple times, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said Friday that this is too early to declare a victory over inflation. So if inflation isn't, controlled, then that just means we have to continue to increase the rates, or they're going to level and stay there until we see those levels drop. But obviously, he also, I just keep getting all these uncles, freaking...
Uncle Powell.
Not Uncle Powell, here's it. I'm trying to find his name.
Uncle Gambles? The guy
Uncle
for-
Gambles,
yeah.
He says that this time around, he doesn't think inflation is going to get to 2% where
Right.
Jerome Powell gets it. He's thinking it's going to be at 3%.
Right.
And that's going to be the tipping point where we start, seeing everything change.
And I think you're right. Well, I think he's right actually in this. So even though the initial push here is, hey, the Fed's got to cut rates, all this other stuff's going on, it's potentially going to be really catastrophic and bad. Look, they even cite here the Labor Department's Consumer Price Index climbed to 3.2% in October. Okay, well, that's 3.2%. That's pretty close to this 3% that may be the target. 2% is probably going to have to be abandoned.
Yeah,
2% just seems really far off still. And again, in order to get there from 3.2% from just like October all the way to 2%, how many more months will that take, and how much more time will they have to leave rates elevated for longer? Remember, higher for longer, higher for longer. Higher for longer. That's been the talking point for so long now that there's only so much higher for longer the economy can take, and they'd have to abandon this whole 2% notion.
And it's tough because the more that you raise the rates, people are accumulating debt, and that debt's only rising and rising and rising. I heard if debt stays around this much, it almost doubles in 2-3 years.
133 trillion.
Yeah, and you're saying stronger for higher for longer, and we just had that podcast with Rod that's saying people are inundated in debt, and he works with credit with people that need help fixing their stuff, and it's just like, whoa, like what point does it break?
Yeah,
at what point does the consumer break and say, hey, nobody's paying anymore?
Yeah,
and then we start seeing the true realities.
I mean, inflation's real. It's out there.
You can't tell me things aren't more expensive. Come on now.
Exactly. And interesting enough, you're saying, and one thing that Rod did mention was people are actually using their credit cards now to pay their, to buy just eggs, groceries. So that's becoming a a common thing.
And then a few weeks back, I had somebody comment on a post I did about a HELOC for consolidating debt or just having that cushion for these times. And I got a response saying like, hey, why would you utilize your equity for payments and this and that? And if you're already utilizing your equity for that sort of things, then maybe you aren't financially responsible. But the thing is that hey, you can't be financially responsible when things spike up to the point where you can't keep up with the earnings. Yeah. Then it really just doesn't make sense because at that point you have to make a solution for your family and your living situation.
Let's draw a line in the sand. I mean, there's a big difference between me going and buying out $100,000 vehicle that I don't need versus the cost of bread and milk and household goods is up 40%. Yeah. I did not do that. When that is done upon me and my only choice is to access credit because I just don't make enough money. Like again, someone can make that comment and they may feel great about themselves making some smart comment in the comment box. But here's the deal. You might be talking to someone who makes $15 an hour. Yeah. And they're working 2 of those jobs. Are you still going to hold the opinion that, they made a bad choice because they had to charge their eggs and their milk? Like, I mean, that's what we're really talking about. I don't think that's necessarily courteous, number one. No. And number two, we're not talking about, this person bought a $100,000 car and they got to pay it off with their home equity line of credit. That's not what our show is about. The show was about people needing to pay normal monthly expenses with their credit cards because their fixed income is not enough. We're not talking about people that are going to make an extra $10,000 next month if they just make a good sale. They're stuck on this hourly wage or this salary, and that is the problem. Because if that money does not move up, but everything else you spend does move up, you're sunk unless you go to your credit cards. I'm sorry. That's just the way it goes for most people.
It's a harsh reality, and not everybody's an entrepreneur. Exactly. Not everywhere, like you said, makes a sale and they're good for the rest of the 2 months or whatever that time it being. Some people literally rely on their paycheck and the income that they're earning to be able to just stay afloat for that month. Right. So when things change, well, what do you do?
Yeah, and if it's not cheaper down at Walmart or the local store or the corner store,
you're probably not going to get it.
Then where are you going to get it? Right? Yeah, where are you going to get it, or you're not going to get it? So
but on a good note, hey, that's good stuff. It's something positive.
Sorry, we get a little passionate.
Somebody's giving us a little positivity.
Well, no, it's okay.
Here, moving into 24, so that's not too bad.
It's good. I'm glad that they came up with this article, and then that CNBC pushed it. I mean, look, here's the thing. You see CNBC push this on their front page. Yeah. That means they're barking for it too. Yeah. They don't have to put that article up. There's plenty of other stuff they could be talking about. When they run that one out there, they're like, hey guys, this is what the markets need and the markets want.
The consumers are the ones that pick it up, and then consumers move the market, right? So once the consumers come in the market because they heard a headline that probably isn't understand the way that it should be, well, great. Now you guys, stimulated the market.
And again, here we go. Advice once again: do not do a lot of Christmas spending. Shopping out there.
Spend within your means.
Spend within your means, because then that's going to give a false interpretation to our Fed government that everybody's doing good, even with these. And then there goes the rates again.
And unfortunately, I feel people are going to put it on the back burner because Christmas, family. We have to do it. It's a must. Yep. So we'll be back and we'll read those reports beginning of the year.
Well, guys, we're going to pivot to the next article today. It is the mortgage market just had its strongest week in months. Purchase applications rose 35% from the prior weeks. And now, again, I'm going to right out the gate say this is proportionate. So 35% from the most recent weeks is substantial when it's compared to something that that's following. Yeah. But again, we are in the kind of the gutter as far as number of units sold this year, number of refinances done. It was a very low year for volume of mortgage originations. But this, I think, shed some light on what we are to expect in 2024. Total loan applications increased 2.8% for the week ending December 1. And again, even that's up. Yeah. So again, I think that we talked about it before, like the rearview mirror of October, of the fall of 2023, October specifically. Yeah. I think that's behind us. I think we're actually looking up to some sunny skies ahead.
Yeah, I know, Andy, that was the worst in a decade. October was the worst. So, I mean, I'm glad that we're out of there now, and now we can actually start seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. It certainly has felt great over the last couple of, I'm going to say, week or so that we saw the rates kind of, go down. It kind of makes you feel like you can breathe. And we have seen more people actually approaching us. Now they're raising their hand and saying, hey, how do I tap into my equity? Is there a line of credit? Because people are still, Andy, still adamant of keeping their low interest rate. Because again, the majority of people we refinanced in 2020, 21, 22, I mean, they all had 2.2% interest rates. You know, I have a client right now that wants to get an equity line of credit, doesn't want to refinance the first. Why? Because he got a 1.9%.
What?
That's what we gave him. It was 1.9.
Yeah, I saw those.
You know what I mean?
Was it a
So-
15-year?
Yeah.
That sounds like an introductory car loan.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So who wants to tap into that? But they're raising their hands because they're saying, wait a minute.
Everything else is up.
That's correct.
Wow.
So,
But then it goes against. So to that point, if your credit card interest rates are going up and you have multiple credit cards, which every American should or does,
should or does.
what happens when that interest rate is just way higher than what you could have converted it into your mortgage? And then people don't see that, though.
No, because Brian, what starts happening is you start charging a little bit, like, oh, okay, I'm at 10,000 here. That's manageable.
Yeah.
Okay, but here comes another situation where there's a family emergency. Now I have to tap in another 15,000.
Yeah.
Well, now you got 25. Okay, not a problem. That was pretty easy to do. Then they start going into another 10,000, another 20,000. Now you see 80, 90,000 at a rate of, anywhere from 16 to 24%. And here's the other kicker. A lot of people don't pay attention. What's my credit card limit? It's 10,000. Well, I charge you 10,500. They misread the little fine print at the bottom.
Interest goes up.
It's a different it's a different scenario now. So that's where you start kind of considering, okay, I need to get out of this because now I need to breathe once again.
Yeah, 100%.
So would you guys say that some of what we're seeing here, I know what we're seeing here locally, is this situation where people are saying, hey, I have like tons of home equity and I need to use some of that to offset this expensive consumer debt that I'm just, debt servicing every single month. Now even the purchase applications are up too. So, I think this is a part from a previous part of this episode talking about the Fed. Like I think people are done with thinking the Fed is going to increase rates. Most people are calling for a pause. Now people are forecasting there's going to be a potential rate cut. So people are, okay, cool. So maybe this is the end of the tightening cycle. Then now I can make some more financial moves. And then we're seeing that result. We're seeing that result in mortgage applications.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Well, right here it says refinance applications posted their strongest week in 2 months. The refinance index rose by 14% on a weekly basis and 10% higher than a year ago.
Yeah.
So for me, that incentivizes that people are now starting to see that, hey, things might not get better soon, or hey, maybe I need to make a move right now because I don't know what's going to be happening with all this uncertainty. Mm-hmm. And now they're starting to say, well, hey, even if it's at a higher rate, my means, my debts, and my cost of living at this point is more important than that low rate. And we're going to start seeing that a lot more, I feel.
Absolutely.
And think about that, 10% higher than a year ago. Were rates higher or lower a year ago?
Lower.
They were lower.
They were
so
lower.
now we have in a higher interest rate environment, more people looking to refinance. So I think it's a reflection of a little bit of the tightening that you're talking about.
Of course.
Personal consumer tightening. We have elevated home prices, which have stayed. So equity, therefore, has stayed. And now people's choices are becking fewer and fewer.
Yeah.
If the dollar ain't going as far every single month, where else am I going to get that money from? The ATM of the house.
Again, the fact is, we're at the highest consumer debt ever recorded. Mm-hmm. This is the highest.
And it's not going away.
It's over $1 trillion.
Wait a minute. It can.
Yeah.
But the way that we're
If
going,
we're smart, if we're smart and we're able to allocate that differently.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you what. I was encouraged to see that
100%.
the FHA loan activity increased to 15%, and VA, our specialty and our favorite, the VA loan activity is up 12.8%. That's really good for both those agencies, but entitlement to essentially help themselves in their financial positioning. So I like all this, especially coming into the end of this year and looking forward to 2024.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Brian? Do you have no thought about that?
I was just gonna say, I think people are starting to warm up to the possibility of like you don't have to struggle if you have a house and it has equity.
Like that.
So you know what I mean? So it's
that's smart.
It just goes to show you that if you want to struggle, like you're gonna struggle by choice. But if you have a house and you're a homeowner, there's a different situation. Now, if you rent, it's a different situation. But if you're a homeowner, you got equity, and you've at least bought a house in the last 3 years, there's something you can do with that. Then let it just sit there, because once more houses come in the market,
Yeah.
It's just leverage at its best.
that's it.
All right, well, guys, promising signs abound for 2024 housing market. We saw new listings and home sales remain low, but available inventory and unsold homes was kind of falling. But it had a lot to do with raising mortgage rates back in October. Of course, we saw a lot less listings come on the market. Plus, it's the holiday season. Most of the rest of the country starts to get really cold. San Diego is the beneficiary of great weather all year long. So, you see a little bit less inventory, but in general, it's less, but it looks like at the end of 2023, we'll actually have more inventory and home prices are going to stay.
Yeah. I saw homes unsold currently, 556,000 currently nationwide.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's like, think about that inventory. What's our population right now? 300, close to 350 million?
Yeah.
And we have 556,000 homes available unsold.
A fraction of a percent. Yeah.
Like this is just incredible. And that's all, that's that was 2.2% more homes than last year.
Yeah. And that's interesting, too, because, more homes this year under contract than at the end of 2022 is interesting because, again, rates were lower then than they are now.
Correct.
And we're coming out of flirting with this 8% rate back in October, which is just nuts to me still. But it is what it is. But I'm just glad that we are seeing more houses under contract. People are thawing out to this idea that, hey, this is probably what it's going to look like. And if I want to get into a home, I'm going to have to get in a home, have that long view on it, and just take it down.
Yeah. And I mean, guys, here's to give you an idea. I ended up seeing this graph. It was pretty crazy. But in 2016, 17, and 18, we had little over a million homes on the market.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until 2019, 2020, that we only had about 800 plus homes available. 2020, 21, towards we started getting COVID in the beginning. That's when rates went down.
Yep.
We started seeing inventory starting to drop big time.
Yeah.
And that's when we started seeing that
Prices spike.
500,000 more or less homes available on an annual basis since then. Isn't that crazy though?
Yeah.
So,
and that's not likely to get better until situations change for people. And I
Exactly.
think that is coming in 2024.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the whole article is promising signs, and I think some of the promising signs is that you still have more demand than you have supply. So that's looking good for people who either have to sell or choose to sell in the new year. Rates going down now relatively to the highs of just a couple of weeks and months ago. That's also a good sign. Plus, you have the new conforming loan limits that just got released here a couple of weeks ago now. That Fannie and Freddie have new conforming limits for 2024. That's going to help people that may have ended up getting a high balance loan or a jumbo loan pricing. That's going to be better.
Yeah.
And, I know that these are generalities, and this isn't true everywhere, but specifically to the conforming loan limit, if you are in a high-cost area, if you live in like a major metropolis, a big metro, you're probably going to have a conforming loan limit that is higher than the new
Of course.
one. So as you're watching this, if you are outside of California or in most places in California, take a look at the conforming loan limits in your local county because they are most likely higher than the national ones. So,
but here we are as we're talking with lower rates. Now we know that if this happened in 2020, 21, right, rates were low. Now we know that there's going to be more demand.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what's going to happen with our inventory?
Yeah.
It's going to diminish.
Yep. Yeah.
So here we go again, 2023. Here we go again, 2022.
Competitive bidding.
That's correct.
I say there's going to be a small wave I'm predicting a wave of inventory, but as soon as the rates come down, it's going to get swarmed up and then just going to be...
And that's right. Right. If you're a owner and your interest rate is low, well, what's your carrying cost on something like that? Mm-hmm. Your cost for real estate is much lower. Yeah. So you have the tendency of holding on to it longer.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. That's what we're seeing here.
Yeah. And another, I think, positive sign that this article highlights is that the price reductions are tapering off. So price reductions are receding for the New Year cycle with 38.7% of the homes on the housing market taking a price cut in the last week. Now, before you freak out, before anyone else watching this freaks out, 38%, I told you, home prices are sinking. Hold on. The volume is very low, like we've already been talking about.
Yeah.
So this doesn't drag down the National Home Price Index at all, really, or at all, because you will still see that the median price of a single-family home in the United States was $425,000, which was 2% higher than the same period last year.
Yeah.
So year over year, it's actually still higher, despite there being price reductions, which seem super high. Price reduction, the amount of homes being price reduced. But here's the thing. If there are 100 homes, that only means 38 of them had price reductions.
Correct.
We're not talking about 1,000 homes worth 380. It was out of like 100. So it's relatively proportionate, guys. Everyone take a chill pill.
Yeah, but the good thing is in comparison to last year, Andy, that dive was much a bigger
Steeper.
dip. It
Yep.
was steeper than it was last year.
Yep.
So it's telling us that the homes, because of the rates are also higher than last year, their sellers are just saying, hey, let's just incentivize and let's just drop this. Let's get moving.
If you had a lot more homes that
Yeah.
were doing price reductions, that'd be a different story. It's just there's so few that are, even though 38% sounds like a scary number, it's just volume-wise, like unit per unit, it's just not that many total. So it's not really anything to freak out about.
There you go.
All in all, I think things are looking up for the housing market in 2024. Definitely better than 2023. And right now, no indications that it's going to be any worse. Okay, guys, let's finish the show strong today. I found this on CoreLogic. This is the Home Equity Insights for Q3 2023. So right out the gate, listen, everybody who's like, you're talking about Q3 2023. Yes, this is a lagging report that comes out many weeks after the quarter finishes because CoreLogic is thorough. We love them. They do a great job.
Yeah.
Their data is very, very good and extremely helpful if you're trying to get your finger on the pulse of what's going on in real estate and mortgage. So they posted their Q3 homeowner equity insights, guys.
Boom!
National homeowner equity went up 6.8%. That amounted to 1.1 trillion more of equity gains in 2023. That's year over year. So that's Q3 of 22 compared to Q3 of 2023. 6.8% higher and $1.1 trillion more of equity.
1.1. That could cover a little bit of that 133.
If everybody just cashed out refinance and paid all their credit card debts, guys, we'd be almost out of consumer debt.
Yeah, this is U.S. homeowners with mortgages, which is roughly 63% of all properties, had an equity increase of 1.1 trillion since the third quarter of 2022, a gain of 6.8% year over year. This is an indication that people don't care about some facets of the market they're buying still.
Oh, yeah.
And the only way that this is continuing to happen is someone who's willing to buy it from you now at the price now than compared to what it was the year before. So even though, again, we talk in generalities a lot, this is specific to state, sometimes county or neighborhood, where some neighborhoods are not doing very well. And some are actually doing way better than others.
Yeah.
I mean, just right here, it says the total number of mortgage residential properties with negative equity decreased by 7.7% from second quarter of 2023. That means their equity went up.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Well, yeah, that means they're not negative anymore.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So even people that had negative equity this year, you're positive.
Well, that's a function of paying down your loan balance at the same time your house is going up in value. Even if they cross each other in the middle of the night, hey, I don't care.
Yeah.
You're not upside down anymore. That's a good sign.
yeah.
Guys, let's think about that. Your grandparents owned a home. This is the best example I can use. I know my grandparents owned a home. And when they bought their home, I don't remember the year it was, but I know my mom telling me they bought it for like 50 or 80,000, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyhow, to this date, I looked to see what the value was. It was like 850,000 for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 1-car garage. Yes, the lot was like 8,500 square feet, but they went through cycles because they bought back in.
That's a good lot.
Yeah,
That's a really good lot.
So they bought back in 1960.
Wow.
Right, in LA.
Yeah. Wow.
And they've gone through all these cycles.
Yeah.
Right, in history with the financial crisis, the mortgage meltdown, et cetera, et cetera. And here it is, their home has still outperformed all the negativity that have happened in the years past. So it's like what I'm going with this is still real estate is their best investment moving forward. I don't think that you can lose out on that.
And it's time in the market.
Time in the market.
It still goes back to time in the market. If you bought on Monday and you tried to sell on Friday, it could have just been the wrong week. But if you bought in 2013 and now you're looking at 2023, 10 years later, you're in a great position. This reflects that. And it's not that every single home in the market was bought in 2013 at the bottom after the bottoming out of the 08-09 catastrophe. But, look, to your point, despite the dips in the housing market, the average U.S. homeowner with a mortgage still has more than $300,000 in equity since the purchase date. Now, I know this is an average. Some are going to have way less than that. You know what that means? That means someone has $500,000.
Yeah.
And then someone else has, $500,000 or $50,000, and someone else has $800,000 equity. This is insane. It's great. Insane. The good insane, guys.
The good insane.
300,000 in equity since a purchase date. That does give people leverage to take care of some things that maybe on the other side of their life are not doing very well, or gives them the future potential that's there. Even if there's a market correction, that $300,000 in equity, I'm not calling for market correction, if there were one and there was a dip, well, that $300,000 in equity, you can take it and you won't be going into negative territory.
Yeah.
That's pretty darn good.
And here's the other thing. There's other ways how to look at this. It's just a mindset thing. People think of it, well, I'm getting equity. I'm actually extending how many years I'm going to be in this home now. I wanted to pay off in 30, but I've been, I own only 20 years now. I don't want to get a line of credit. I don't want to do that because then it's going to take me another 10 years to pay this off. But what people don't realize is, let's say their payments on $100,000 on the credit card debt is like, just say, for example's sakes here, just to keep it simple, $1,300. They take the line of credit. It's actually $900. That $400 could be applied towards their principal balance, right? Of whatever they were already used to making, and send that payment to pay it down. And as we move forward with the economy getting better and flourishing, you could at that point in time maybe even pay a little more, and you'll end up having actually paying down the principal much sooner.
Yeah.
So there's ways how you could skin the cat, but obviously you have to have the right person that you can talk to, discuss these things, and put it on paper so you see the full transparency behind it.
I believe that this is the reason why we do this show and why we do the content, because of the lack of financial literacy that a lot of people have. And it's, not sometimes it's not even your fault. It's just, how you got brought up. It's, I think it has a lot to do with your habits, the way you got brought up, and your environment, because that's going to dictate ultimately the direction of how your life is going to go for the most part, but that's what I feel the strongest thing is that, people don't know that they have these options, and then they're afraid because, if I'm doing this, it's incurring a cost, or, it's going to be negative because now I have to run my credit. But little do you know that it's literally alleviating this debt over here that's crushing you, and because you see it every month in your reports. And you could alleviate it by doing that investment that you sacrificed yourself for, and now you could consolidate and not have to be bleeding every month. And it's going to be a sacrifice, another sacrifice, but look at the outlook and how that's going to put you in the position to make better decisions down the line.
Yeah.
Correct.
And
I mean, you saw Tanya talk about this today.
That's what I'm saying.
We're just talking about it. And most people don't have those discussions, but she's looking like she was all impressed. Look at our mortgage statement. Look at our mortgage statement. We only owe $290,000,
Yeah.
But that's because our payment's $26,000 and I pay $500 a month just to, towards principal. And I put it right there. And it's like, it's just kind of like investing into my retirement, right? And in a certain amount of time when I turn 62, which is next year, I could do a reverse mortgage.
Whatever.
I could do a reverse mortgage. There's other ways I can do that, not having a payment, and pull some of my equity in a certain way. There's ways we can do this,
I think this comes with having the right team in your corner, which is you guys, number one. So let's talk about this. Let's unpack this a little bit. Number one, you got to have the right guys in your corner.
Correct.
Number two, you have to have a plan. And number three, you have to be disciplined. I mean, what I hear you saying in other terms, you have to be disciplined. If you're going to commit to this path of doing that and use the mortgage accelerator calculator to pay off your home faster, you have to be disciplined to do it, because that money has to come from somewhere. I'm not saying that everyone just watching this has excess all the time, but when you do, and you can apply it towards paying down your loan balance, it's only going to help you. And again, with equity reaching all-time highs, this is one of those things where we can advocate for that healthfully, and people can actually do it. This isn't some like pie-in-the-sky dream where it's just on theory and it works on paper.
Yeah.
Like, no, this is actually working for people. If you are just watching the Mortgage Shows podcast now for the first time, several episodes ago, William talked about it and Brian talked about it, how they actually use home equity to help someone save $1,300 a month and someone else save $1,200 a month. And in your instance, that $1,300 reinvested or paid down to the principal balance was going to pay their house off in like 15 and a half years or something like that.
15 or something like that. Yeah. We run this.
That's crazy.
Exactly. We run this mortgage seller calculator. As a matter of fact, if anybody needs it and they need that, we'd be more than happy to provide that.
It's on the website, and I'll put the link in the description box.
Yeah. Just send us a comment and we'll send it. Better that way. I'd rather see people commenting if they want it, because then it's going to allow me to actually, I don't want to make it easy, There a lot of times, you become a little more passionate when you request, when you do something for it.
That's true.
Versus just putting it right there, making it easy. Like, let's put a comment in there. Just tell us if you need it and what's the reason, so that we could just give it to you.
Nice.
No questions asked, no nothing.
Yeah.
You know?
Good.
So I just think we all have a more of appreciation when it comes to that.
Yeah,
Andy.
100%. Good. Well, you guys, any other thoughts about this home equity? It was great news for me. And I think it's actually going to be the same in quarter four. So by the time we get to January, and I think we'll get it in February is when it's going to come out, It's usually somewhere between 6 and 8 weeks after the quarter finishes. We get this from CoreLogic. So we'll see this in the new year in quarter one. But I think, honestly, my prediction is quarter 4 is going to look very much like quarter 3. I think it's going to be up. Home equity will be higher because, again, price declines were not happening a lot in October, November, December. And, again, there were very few very few units being transacted anyways. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of price declines. I think you're going to see home prices stay.
Yeah, I think so, too. I agree with that.
For me, for equity, use it. Don't abuse it, or else you're gonna lose it.
Well, there you go.
But with that being said, if you have the opportunity to take care of what you have to take care of, your dragging debts, do that first, And then if there's an opportunity to invest that money and then make money on that, then do that second. Because then, 1, you'll be free. 2, you'll make money, and then that money might make you more money. And then look at that. All you had to do was take a quick little sacrifice, disperse the money in the right way, and just be smart with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Well, awesome job today, guys. Thanks again for coming on the show. So let's talk about favorite part of the show today. Memo, what's the favorite part
of the show is obviously a lot of times what we think is going to be really good news may not be the best news. Okay, and what I mean by that, if we're talking about 5 rate hike, 5 rate reductions. Right? We interpret it like this is great news, right? But at the same time, if it's great news, that could be detrimental for a first-time home buyer because now there's going to be less supply, more competition, and then with the affordability crisis right there, it might not be the best news. Yeah. So that's like my biggest thing is don't go with the hype. Let the data really speak for itself and go from there.
I think for me, in difference from 2023, I feel that we went into 2020. The difference between the end of 2022, I feel that we went into 2023 not really knowing what was going to happen because everything felt like it just switched overnight. And 2022, like, whoa, wait, why'd you guys turn on the lights in the club? Exactly. And I feel that going into 2024. This time around, a lot more people paid attention or closely paying attention to the data or informing themselves in a way where if things shift in a certain direction, at least I know well enough to be able to, navigate towards these economic times. And I feel that going into 2024, there's a lot more positivity than there was back going into 2023.
Heck yeah.
And there's a lot more data to support that, for those that are actually looking at the real data, to support what's actually happening is moving in a somewhat better direction. We still don't know because tomorrow something can happen drastically. But for the most part, I feel there's a huge, more positive outlook going into 2024 than there was into 2023.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to take a little bit just kind of on that. But you're absolutely right. It actually has created even better habits for us.
Yeah.
Yes. Right? Some of my habits now that I told my wife, Tanya, like, dude, take your credit card off of Amazon.
Yeah.
We actually looked at even here at Cox in our office. Certain things that we're doing, we're implementing in our lives, in our business lives to cut down expenses that were unnecessary.
Yeah, unnecessary.
100%. And it's just look at your expenses, guys. You'd be surprised the garbage you're spending on. And if you start paying attention, like we're just throwing money away.
Right.
Sorry, I get excited about that. Sorry, I cut you on that.
It's passionate, not excited.
But that's what 2023 has done for me in my personal life, has made me pay more attention.
So good.
Because if we pay attention to it, it's just going to get me faster to retirement because now I can allocate those funds on better investments versus Amazon.
Very good.
Sorry.
No. That's very good. No, it's very good.
Let's go.
So, me, guys, it is the homeowner equity insights from CoreLogic. First of all, I'm a nerd. I love that
stuff. Of course. I was going to say.
But here's what I'm going to tell you. This is
Sheldon.
This is really the nail in the coffin for all these sky is falling in real estate people. I keep seeing it all the time. Now, and again, look, everyone's like, well, yeah, Andy, you're like that too. You talk about this bad news on the internet all the time. I do talk about bad stuff and what it means. But there was a ton of people when all this rate stuff was happening and inventory's low, the sky's falling, there's going to be, massive foreclosures, there's going to be defaults out the wazoo, and everything's going to crash 35%. It's not happening. It's not happening. The data isn't happening. So either CoreLogic is super lying about all this or it ain't happening. So I'm glad that it's not happening because, again, people who can access their equity, be smart about their money, have the right people in their corner, plan accordingly, and to be disciplined in carrying out a financial plan are doing so. And I'm really, really excited about that, especially looking into the new year. I'm very optimistic about what real estate will be as a force function for people to change their trajectory of their legacy financially. And that is what I'm most excited about.
That's
today.
awesome.
That's my favorite part of the show.
So real estate's not going anywhere. nowhere.
No,
Yeah.
it hasn't.
Well, thank you guys again for a great show. Thank
Same
you
to
all
you.
for watching on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like the video, and turn notifications so that every time we launch a new episode, you see it first. And for all those you watching or listening on Google and Apple, turn on direct downloads so that every time we upload there, you get notified. Thank you so much for joining us. Great show again today, guys.
thank
And we'll
you.
see you again next week.
That's it. See ya.